Okay, so the Rosenhan theory, he comes up with what we call definitions of mental health, of abnormal behaviour. So Rosenhan comes up with specialising in abnormal psychology from his original study and looking at type 1, type 2 errors in diagnosis. He's looking at the atypical. So how do we decide what is abnormal behaviour in psychology? Now, one definition is failure to function in society. So things like when a person is suffering, it affects how they function. Maladaptiveness, not being able to change. Irrational in their decision processes or abnormal behaviour. When observers are uncomfortable viewing a behaviour. Vividness, violation of moral codes in society. Unpredictable. All of these 7 behaviours are seen as failure to function in society. These are all determined by our cultures, and within our cultures are our subcultures. So the way our community interacts, what's acceptable and what's not. And all of these sort of social rules and the breaking of these social rules are what we call cultural bound syndromes. So what is seen in one society as normal is not seen in another society as normal. So way 1 is to detect abnormal behaviour using statistical infrequency. So that is looking to look at the bell curve and saying, well, what goes outside of that normal distribution? And whichever behaviours go outside that normal distribution, they're the behaviours that are maladaptive. There is a failure to function in society. And when you're on either side of this bell curve, there is a potential problem. However, when we look at things like IQ, if you have an extremely high IQ, you are outside the average bell curve distribution. But does that make you abnormal? Does that make you maladaptive? Does it make you a failure to function in society? Well, no, that's seen as quite positive. However, if you go to the other end of the bell curve and you look at retardation, for example, you might say that these people, yes, they are failure to function, so they are atypical of society. So one way of looking at and diagnosing abnormal behaviour is to look and distribute what is normal and what is not normal. But again, all of this very much depends on the culture that you're in. Now, way 2, another way, is a social contract. So what is normal in your social society? So what are the social rules and are you abiding by them? If you're not abiding by them, then failure to function. Now, way 3, the third way that we can look at atypical abnormal behaviour, is to look at failure to function, and that means failure to function adequately in society, so to not produce, to not add to your society. Now, way 4 is deviation from the ideal mental health. So that is, we have a picture in our, again, society, situational rules, which determine what is socially acceptable and what isn't, and failure to, or deviation away from what is typical normal mental health in your society will classify you as atypical and get you a diagnosis, DSM or ICD. Okay, so what is typical behaviour though? How can we say that somebody is mentally healthy and not mentally healthy if we have this situational problem? Well, Jihad elements of optimal health looked at, you have a positive view of yourself. So if we look at depression, for example, they often have a very detrimental view of themselves, very negative. And that would be seen as failure to function, because not thinking highly of yourself is actually a form of suffering. Good mental health is that you have personal growth, and that is acceptable and reasonable and achievable. You have autonomy in society, you have control of your life, an accurate view of reality, so you know which voices are real and which ones are not. The 5th one is positive relationships, so you are functioning well in society as far as relationships go, and you have a social network, you're not isolated. And that you have control and you're able to adapt in society. And these are ideas of what is typical behaviour, what is normal functioning behaviour in society. So what Rosenhan suggests is 4 ways that we can assess what is atypical behaviour. Now, in an ideal world, you choose all of these, but the reality is most clinicians choose one, and most of them suffer from culture-bound syndrome. That is, that we take our diagnosis and we inflict it on other societies when actually it doesn't fit their culture. So, for example, things like African tribes, witch doctors, hearing voices is hugely important to them, and anybody who hears several voices in their head is blessed. However, in Western society, hearing voices in your head is very much a maladaptive behaviour, which will lead to unpredictability, will lead to observer discomfort. So that means that people observing schizophrenics are afraid of them, and this rules them atypical, which means that they need help in society in order to fit in. Okay, so that's the Rosen.